For the Wisconsin Elections Commission says supporters of former President Donald Trump submitted 16 more valid signatures than needed to force a recall of Wisconsin's top elected Republican. But it depends on what district the recall should be held in. The commission will meet Thursday to vote on whether to order a recall election targeting Assembly Speaker Robin Vos. The key question is whether signatures to force the recall needed to come from the district Vos was elected to represent in 2022, or whether they should have come from his district created under new maps in effect for the 2024 election.